Revealed. The incredible secret call sign that transformed my dad's South Heart in court after 10 years. The sun rose over Maplewood, painting the quaint streets in colors of hope and nostalgia. Yet behind the beauty, Casey Thompson's heart felt nothing but turmoil. At 30 years old, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, especially as the date for her late mother's estate hearing approached. Memories of her father, Mike, a soldier once covered in glory, would flash in her mind. A proud veteran still battling unseen demons from the war. Their relationship had been riddled with sorrow since her mother's passing, adding tension to their already strained father-daughter bond. Late one night, floodlights from the street illuminated the clutter of Mike's belongings in the attic. In search of anything that might help her case, she stumbled upon an old military patch marked the Heartbreaker. It struck her like a bolt of lightning. The call sign was a testament to the untold stories and sacrifices Mike had carried silently and the love he had never shown. Feeling her heart race, Casey felt the walls of resentment crack just a little. With trembling hands, she sat down and began to write. The words flowed out like a dam bursting. She acknowledged the sacrifices he made for both his country and for her. Each stroke of the pen held her longing for reconciliation, a desire to find the warmth of the family she once knew. Could this letter be the bridge over their chasm of silence? As she folded the letter, hope intertwined with trepidation in her chest. The courtroom was a battlefield of its own. Tension hung heavy, almost palpable, as Casey and Mike locked eyes across the aisle. The air was thick with a decade of unspoken emotions, a yawning chasm of anger and disappointment. She cleared her throat, her heart pounding like a war drum, and slowly began to read the letter aloud. Each word felt like a thread weaving their frayed relationship back together. The revelation of the call sign left the audience breathless. Was Mike the heartbreaker because of the pain he endured during the war, or was he the architect of the heartbreak within their family? As tears brimmed in her eyes, silence enveloped the court, marking an unbearable moment of vulnerability. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that is happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A flicker of recognition crossed Mike's face as she challenged him to confront his choices. The weight of their shared past hung heavily in the air, asking if love could bridge over a decade of hurt and silence. Faces in the courtroom watched in anxious anticipation, hearts holding onto hope. Would Mike finally share his pain, or would he once more slip behind the armor of pride? As the proceedings dragged on, an unspoken understanding lingered between Casey and Mike, ready to shatter the foundations of who they believed themselves to be. In this moment of reckoning, the audience could feel the tension rising, teetering on the edge of emotional revelation. Would they choose the path of forgiveness, or would they remain trapped in the shadows of resentment, forever haunted by unspoken words? The silence in the courtroom was almost deafening. Casey could feel the eyes of the audience weighing on her, their breaths collectively held in anticipation. She glanced at Mike, searching for any sign that her words were piercing through the emotional armor he had worn for so long. His face was a mix of stoicism and something softer, as if a flicker of vulnerability was peeking through. "Dad," she continued, voice steady despite the thundering in her chest. "I want you to know that I understand you more than I ever let on. I know it felt like you had to fight battles alone, both in the war and in your life. But I want you to understand that I'm here now. I want to be part of your journey, no matter how painful." The trembling hands of the judge, firmly presiding over the proceedings, began to shift as if he too felt the weight of the moment. Mike's brow furrowed, and Casey took a deep breath, hoping to push through the layers of hurt that had built up over the years. Images of her childhood danced in her mind, her dad's hearty laughter during family game nights, the way he used to tuck her in at night, the stories he shared about his bravery in the service. They felt like ghosts now, faded and distant. Could she retrieve those memories, those fragments of joy and laughter, and lay them at his feet? Can we stop being strangers? She asked, her voice breaking slightly. I can't keep pretending that we don't mean anything to each other. You are still my father, and whether we like it or not, we're family. A heavy pause ensued. The tension morphed into something sharper as Mike's gaze dropped to the floor. His hands clenched into fists, and Casey knew her words had landed. It was now or never. She took a step forward and placed the letter on the table between them, like a peace offering. This isn't just about the estate. It's about us, it's about time we try to heal. Her heart raced with urgency. Across the aisle, murmurs swept through the room like a soft tide. The judge's gavel hit the desk with a muted thud, punctuating the murmurs. Order, please, he called, but Casey barely heard him. She was caught in the raw moment between her and Mike. His eyes finally lifted, and for the first time in years, they met hers with something different, perhaps regret, perhaps longing. The words stumbled from his mouth, as if the jagged pieces of years past were trying to fit together. And I don't want to lose any more time, she rushed on. We're both hurting, but I believe we can navigate this together. The suspense in the room thickened, hanging in the air like the storm clouds outside. Casey's heart raced as she clung to hope, but fear gnawed at the edges of her mind. What if he turned away again? What if her words weren't enough? Just then, Mike shifted and began to speak, his voice low and hesitant. Casey, her breath caught, and the world narrowed, shrinking down to the sound of her father's voice. Would he finally confess his pain? Could she handle what came next? Before I answer you, he paused, the weight of a mountain shifting. There is something I need to tell you. Casey's heart thundered in her ears, teetering on the brink of revelation and heartache. What was he about to say? Mike's hesitation hung heavy in the air, and Casey leaned in, her heart thumping violently. Every second felt stretched thin, the noise of the courtroom fading into an unbearable silence. She could see the turmoil behind his eyes as he wrestled with whatever his truth was. Casey, he said slowly, each word weighed down by reluctance. There is so much I haven't told you. So many things I kept from you to protect you, or so I thought. His voice cracked, revealing a fragile man who had built walls that were now beginning to crumble. Casey wanted to reach out, to grab his hand and pull him closer, but she stayed still, afraid to break the moment. What do you mean? The question was a whisper, filled with both fear and hope. He took a shaky breath, visibly gathering himself. When I came back from the war, I wasn't just damaged, I was haunted. Every face I saw in my nightmares, every sleepless night spent reliving it, I thought if I buried it deep enough, it wouldn't hurt you or your mother. I was wrong. As he spoke, Casey's hands trembled on the table, her fingers brushing the edges of the letter she had written. But that led me to shut you out. I convinced myself it was for the best. I didn't give us the chance we needed. His voice lowered, almost shameful. I lost myself, Casey, and in that process I lost you too. Her heart sank with his words, feeling the weight of his pain and her own. You don't have to carry this alone anymore, Dad. I want to help you share those burdens. Mike exhaled forcefully, a mix of relief and sorrow in his eyes. You deserve to know the truth, and I owe it to you. He paused again, emotion lacing the edges of his voice. The battles I fought, they destroyed parts of me. But the real fight wasn't just out there. It was coming home and facing the ghost of who I had become. Casey felt her breath hitch. You can fight again with me. We can be a team. Just don't push me away. Every word she spoke felt like an echo of her plea of the little girl inside her, who wanted nothing more than her father's love. I know that now, he breathed, his gaze piercing into hers. But it's not just about the past, it's about the choices I still need to make. Choices that could change everything. With those words hung a promise and a threat. Casey held onto the edge of the table, her heart thudding. What choices, Dad? I need to confront what I lost and what we might still find, he said, voice barely above a whisper. The tension between them shifted slightly, like a beam of light breaking through heavy clouds. Suddenly, the courtroom erupted into murmurs again, breaking their moment of intimacy. The judge's gavel rang out, forceful and commanding. "Order," he barked, but Casey couldn't steady her gaze away from Mike. "What do you mean by that?" she pressed, almost desperately. His words were a promise of potential change, but he hadn't told her how far they could go together. Mike paused only long enough to let his eyes drop for a moment, as if pondering as hard as he could. "I need to get help, real help. But I can't do it alone. And if there's any hope for us, it starts with me. For the first time, I'm ready to take that step." But what?" she urged, feeling the adrenaline of an uncharted path. His eyes lifted, locking onto hers again. "But I need you to trust me. I need you to believe in me and the journey ahead. Can you do that?" Casey felt tears pooling in her eyes, the swell of emotions lifting her heart. But the question remained swirling inside her head. Could she truly trust him, not only with her heart, but with their future? As silence enveloped them once more, she knew they were teetering on the brink of something monumental. What was Mike truly willing to give up to make things right? And would she be able to step into the unknown with him? The intensity in the courtroom mounted, the clock ticking down on their moment. Just as she opened her mouth to reply, a loud crash echoed from outside, jolting her back to reality. What had happened now? And would it disrupt the fragile connection they had just begun to build? The crash echoed through the courtroom, shaking the very foundations of their fragile moment. Mike and Casey both jumped in surprise, their connection feeling simultaneously electric and tenuous, like a fragile thread ready to snap. A commotion outside intensified, muttering voices weaving through the wooden doors of the courtroom. The judge, visibly irritated, glanced up from his seat. A guard rushed to the door, swinging it open with urgency. In mere seconds, they could see the chaos unfolding in the hallway. A group of people had gathered, their voices rising in a cacophony, blocking the entrance. "What's happening?" the judge demanded, trying to regain control. Mike turned his gaze from the door back to Casey, his eyes wide. "Stay here," he said, his voice firm, but the fear in his eyes reflected her own. "I'm not going anywhere," she replied, heart racing. The thought of leaving him, especially now, was unbearable. "We can face this together." Just as those words escaped her lips, the guard returned, a frown etched across his brow. "Is it a protest or something?" he stammered, looking back at the crowd. "They're asking for the judge's attention about a case." Casey held her breath. The world could map her father's battles one moment at a time, but now outside forces threatened to pull them apart again. "Our moment," she whispered, feeling the connection slip. "Casey, listen." Mike lowered his voice, leaning closer. "I'll get us through this. But I need you to trust me when I say we can't let distractions derail us." As the murmurs of the crowd grew louder, a woman's voice rose above the chaos, determined and fierce. "We have a right to be heard." This isn't just about the case. That voice sent a surge of anger and confusion through Casey. It was a reminder of the chaos Mike had carried for so long, the voices from his past that had haunted him. But this was also about them, their moment, their truth. "I can't lose you again, Dad," she exclaimed, tears prickling at her eyes. "Trust me," he replied, his voice steady despite the noise surrounding them. "Let us not let this be the end of our conversation." Before Casey could respond, another sound cut through the turmoil, a piercing scream. It came from the hallway, raw and haunting. Mike's face shifted instantly, worry replacing the determination. "I'm going to see what's happening." "No." Casey gripped his arm tightly. "What if it's dangerous?" "Trust me," he repeated, this time more insistent. "I need to go. Stay here and keep thinking about what we just talked about. I'll be right back." Reluctantly, she released her grip as he stepped away, his figure swallowed by the chaos. In those moments, the world outside felt like a storm, and she was standing alone at its eye. Her heart raced as she tried to wrap her mind around everything that was happening. The emotion, the fear, the tension, all of it swirling around in a whirlwind of possibilities. Would this moment, fragile and barely formed, unravel before she could fully grasp it? Just then, the door burst open again, and Mike's anxious expression reappeared amidst the wave of disruptors. "Casey," he shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. "You need to hear this. It's important." What had he discovered? In that moment, the sound of the world faded, and all she could do was focus on the intensity in his eyes. They were on the brink, and she sensed this was the turning point, the moment that could define everything. With her heart pounding, she stepped forward, ready to grasp whatever truth he was about to reveal. Would it bring them closer, or would it deepen the rift between their past and future? What awaited her beyond that door? Would the truth finally set them free, or would it bring chaos anew? Mike's breath came in quick, concerned puffs, as he scanned the room filled with uncertainty. The walls of the courtroom felt like they were closing in, drowning out all external noise except for a steady, drumming heartbeat, the sound that matched Casey's own. He stepped closer, his eyes serious but desperate for reassurance. "Casey, what I just heard," he began, wrestling with the gravity of the situation. "There's something happening out there, something that directly affects us. It's about your dad." Her chest constricted. "What do you mean? Is he in trouble?" No, not like that," he hurried to clarify. "It's just they're talking about a witness, a person who has information on where he was that night. Could change everything." The words hit Casey like a tidal wave. There had been whispers of witnesses, of pieces of truth hidden beneath layers of lies, but she had always tried to push those thoughts aside. She felt a flicker of hope ignite, battling the fear that had held her tight. "What do they know?" she urged, intensity surging through her. "Do they know what really happened?" Mike shook his head, his expression grave. "I don't know yet, but I think we have to hear it. We need to know if this witness is on our side or against us." The pulse of the protest outside intensified, echoing thoughts and doubts in her mind. It was as if the chaos mirrored the turmoil within her, a storm of expectation, fear, and a desperate need for clarity. She had fought so hard to believe that they would uncover the truth together. A loud voice rang out beyond the courtroom, drawing her attention. "We will not be silenced. Justice is for everyone." A wave of agreement surged from the crowd, and for a moment, she felt her heart swell with the raw power of collective fight. "Mike, what if they're right?" Casey whispered urgently. "What if this witness just muddies the water even more? What if we lose everything we've worked for?" He paused, his eyes softening. "But what if they have the key to set your dad free? This could be our moment to finally turn things around." A new threat formed in the air, an overwhelming push of possibility that tangled with her lingering doubts. They faced an unknown territory painted in shades of hope and fear, where every decision could twist their fates in unexpected ways. "Okay," she finally breathed, determination warming her. "Let us go see what's happening." As they moved toward the door, the tension crackling between them felt palpable, a shared resolve cemented through their close connection. But just as they reached for the handle, a hush fell over the courtroom. The murmurs stilled, replaced by a suffocating silence that crept under their skin. Both of them turned, confusion tightening their brows. The judge rose from his seat, his face pale but grim. "Ladies and gentlemen, I need your attention," he called. "It appears we have a serious development regarding the case." The air thickened with anticipation, and Casey squeezed Mike's hand. Whatever this was, it could change everything. "Stay strong," he murmured, echoing the promise they had made to each other. As the judge's words cut through the tension, Casey prepared herself for the unknown. It was a reminder of how fragile hope could be, but sometimes, she thought, you had to lean into that hope fiercely, despite the noise and fury around you. What truth awaited them in this moment of stillness? Would it unite them against the chaos, or send them spiraling into deeper shadows? The judge's voice crackled through the silence, a careful cadence born of years spent in the courtroom. "The witness," he paused, eyes sweeping the tense crowd, "has requested to remain anonymous." The words hung like a fog in the air, curling around Casey's heart. Anonymous? What did that even mean? She exchanged a glance with Mike, uncertainty flickering in his features. "Your Honor, what does this entail?" A lawyer from the back shouted, impatience bubbling beneath his composed exterior. Tension rolled through the room as others echoed a similar unease. The witness has provided information that could be critical to this case. The judge continued, steadying himself. However, due to safety concerns, the identity will not be disclosed until further inquiry can be made. Casey's mind raced. A cloak of anonymity could shield the truth, but it could also taint it. What if the information was misleading or worse, a calculated deception? She squeezed Mike's hand tighter, searching for grounding in the storm of thoughts crashing within her. What if it's a trap? She whispered. What if this person is trying to take advantage of the situation? The panic felt like a weight on her chest, squeezing out the air. Mike's eyes softened. We'll figure it out together. Wherever this leads us, we're in it together, okay? The strength in his gaze was a warm light, and she leaned into it, feeling the weight lift just a little. The murmurs of disbelief rolled through the room, vibrating against the polished wooden benches and the cold steel of the judge's podium. Casey's stomach twisted as she watched the faces around her. Some were hopeful, others weary, and a few wore grim expressions that echoed her own fears. Could you repeat the statement for the record? The judge's stern voice cut through the noise, his patience wearing thin. The witness's voice echoed over speakers at the back of the room, shaky yet resolute. I was there the night of the incident. I saw everything. Casey's breath caught in her throat, hope and dread fighting for dominance in her heart. The weight of the unknown pressed against her as she leaned in, straining to catch every word. There was a man, the voice continued, faltering momentarily. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time, but he had nothing to do with the crime. I can help prove it. This was it. This was the moment they had been waiting for. But before hope could take root, another thought gripped her. What if that man wasn't just someone innocent? What if he was someone out to distract? The possibility of betrayal hovered. Casey felt Mike's hand slip from her grasp as he leaned toward the front, drawn to the witness's words. She searched his face and saw determination carved in his features. But deep within her, a shadow stretched, whispering that maybe this witness was just the beginning of something darker. Suddenly, a voice erupted from the crowd. What's your agenda? Why come forward now? A woman stood, her voice a clear-cut blade slicing through the tension. The judge banged his gavel, but the crowd had stirred. The roar of voices rushed around her, questions spiraling, doubt growing. Casey's heart raced. Each question felt like a blow, unraveling their fragile thread of hope. As chaos unfolded, Casey locked eyes with Mike. The connection was as vital as a heartbeat. They were teetering on the edge of something monumental, of either collapse or breakthrough. Stay with me, Mike urged, returning to her side. She nodded, feeling their resolve lift like the tide. What awaited them beyond this threshold of uncertainty? Would this witness guide them to salvation, or lead them further into a trap? The answer lay just ahead, obscured in the chaos of unanswered questions and the rising storm of potential consequences. Would they have the courage to follow it through? The room was pulsating with energy, every pair of eyes riveted to the front, hopes and doubts playing out like a silent movie. Voices buzzed and flared, concern etched across faces. Casey felt a tightness in her throat, a mix of nerves and anticipation that left her breathless. The witness had seen something, yet the mystery of their identity loomed over her like a dark cloud. What if this only leads us to more questions? She whispered to Mike, her voice barely audible over the swell of murmurs. The uncertainty weighed heavily on her, twisting her stomach into knots. Could, Mike replied, unyielding. But we can't back down now. This could be a chance to reshape everything. He had a way of saying things that ignited a flicker of hope, drawing her into a warmth she desperately needed. As the judge attempted to restore order, Casey felt the atmosphere shift sharply, like a storm rolling in. Order, he shouted, his gavel striking with fierce authority. We will hear the witness' full statement before any questions are entertained. The room, at least for a moment, fell into a tense silence. Casey closed her eyes briefly, focusing on steadying her breathing. The weight of so many lives rested on this one moment, and it felt both terrifying and empowering. There was a crackle on the speaker as the witness continued. The man I saw, he didn't know. Didn't he know what was about to happen? Casey's heart thudded loudly in her chest. This was it, a kernel of truth unfurling before them. What did you see? A voice called from the back, impatience dripping with urgency. A ripple of agreement surged through the crowd, growing more restless. I saw the man take something from another. The witness's voice wavered, a falter that sent ripples of unease through the spectators. And I tried to stop them, but I was too late. Someone else got hurt. Casey's heart sank. This man, this supposed savior, now carried a weight of accountability. If this turned out to be a redirection, it could unravel everything they were fighting for. What if he's just remembering things wrong? She murmured to Mike, panic creeping back in. What if it makes everything worse? Then we'll face it together, he said firmly. We'll get to the bottom of this, no matter how hard it gets. His hand gripped hers tightly, anchoring her in the storm. Suddenly, a figure rose from the back, a grim-faced woman who had been silent until now. Stop this nonsense. If you saw something, why hide? She shouted, pointing accusingly. What are you scared of? Gasps echoed through the room, the tension snapping like a taut wire. Casey felt her pulse quicken. Would the weight of doubt shatter their last threads of hope? Would they lose their chance at justice? Please step back, the judge commanded, his voice steady but strained with authority. Yet, Casey could feel the anxiety radiating off the crowd. Everyone was poised on the edge of their seats, waiting for that one definitive answer. The witness cleared their throat. I came forward because I had to. I wanted to help. But I know the risks. The voice trailed off, thick with emotion. But what did they know? What lay beneath this hidden name, this faceless truth? A fire ignited within Casey. Something felt off, almost sinister about this witness's declaration. They were shrouded in secrecy, and the weight of their words could either save them or plunge them into a chaos deeper than they had yet faced. She turned to Mike, her voice a whisper but filled with urgency. If this witness creates more questions, we need to find the answers fast. Then we'll do it, Mike replied, the steely determination in his eyes consuming her fear. We'll dig until we uncover the truth. But what other secrets would they unearth? As they steadied themselves for the battle ahead, Casey felt the shadow of uncertainty loom larger than ever. With one last look at Mike, she knew the path wouldn't be easy, but the hope of clarity beckoned. What would that search for truth require of them? Would they find answers, or would their journey lead them to a dark revelation that could change everything? As the murmurings in the room settled, the weight of stress pressed hard against Casey's chest. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental, but the shadow of doubt hung like a thick fog. She shot a glance at Mike, whose expression was set with fierce determination, yet she saw a hint of weariness in his eyes. Why do I feel like we're chasing ghosts? She blurted out, clasping her hands together to steady the tremor. The walls around her felt too close, almost suffocating. Maybe because we are, Mike replied quietly, but sometimes the truth is hidden among the phantoms. We just need to keep looking. His reassurance was a lifeline in turbulent waters, yet she sensed even he couldn't ignore the uncertainty swirling around them. The judge cleared his throat again, stark against the silence. Let us proceed, witness. Please share what you know with us. The sternness of his voice felt grounding, but Casey's heart sank as the tension escalated once more. I saw them, the witness repeated, fresh resolve creeping back into their voice. There was a struggle. I saw something exchanged. Then the witness's gaze darted around the room nervously, as if searching for someone who wasn't there. Then I heard the screams. A collective gasp washed through the audience like a tide, and for a moment, it felt as if time held its breath. Casey leaned forward, unable to tear her eyes away. What screams? She whispered, as if the answer would materialize right in front of her. The witness hesitated again. I didn't stay to see. I wish I had, but I was terrified. Their confession felt like sand slipping through her fingers, just out of reach. Why are you terrified? A voice shouted from the crowd, urgency twisting the words. Is there someone threatening you? The rawness in their tone resonated with Casey, exposing the true stakes now hanging in the air. I wish the witness faltered. I wish I could say more. I kept quiet for so long because I was scared of what could happen. They said their voice cracked, and the shame that dripped from their words sent chills through Casey. What dark forces had manipulated this person into silence? The judge banged his gavel again, calling for calm. We need clarity here. Please keep speaking. But it felt as if the truth was retreating further into shadows the more they clamored for it. How can we trust what you're saying? Someone else shouted, the frustration rising like a storm. You might be putting all of us in danger. Each jab of uncertainty felt like ice in Casey's veins. Her heart raced, fueled by the mounting tension and the sense that they were one step away from disaster. She could feel Mike's hand on her shoulder, a reassuring gesture grounding her. Listen to your gut, he whispered. You're sharp. If something feels off, don't let it slide. As the witness's voice faltered into silence, Casey's mind raced. There had to be more. They were on the verge of unraveling secrets that could change everything. But at what cost? Mike, she said suddenly, we need to find out who this witness really is. They can't just remain hidden while we risk everything. There must be a way to get to the bottom of this. I agree, he responded, the fire of resolve flashing in his eyes. If we don't push for answers now, we might never get another chance. With a nod, they sprang into action, determination ignited. There was no time to waste. But as Casey and Mike began plotting their next steps, a chilling thought slithered through her mind. Who were they really up against? As they delved deeper into the shadows, what horrors could awaiting them at the end of the path? With the stakes higher than ever, Casey locked eyes with Mike. Are we ready for whatever's lurking in the dark? They had no idea just how twisted the truth could get, but they had promised each other to face it together. The clarity they sought might unlock more than just answers. It could expose the very depths of danger they feared most. What awaited them on that treacherous road ahead? The tension hung heavy in the air as Casey and Mike stepped away from the courtroom crowd. Each footfall echoed in their minds, a stark reminder of the confrontation that loomed before them. With a shared glance, they communicated an urgency that needed no words. They had to find the witness, but more importantly, they needed to uncover who had silenced them all this time. Where do we even start? Casey asked, rubbing her temples, still reeling from the chaos. The flashes of doubt flickered in her mind like an old film reel, the witness's fear, the warnings of hidden dangers. It felt as if they were digging into a pit that had no bottom. First, let us track down anyone who might know the witness, Mike replied, his brows knitting together. There might be someone who's already crossed paths with them. We just have to be careful. We can't let them know we're coming. The urgency in his voice pushed Casey to focus. Right. We have to be smart. We can't tip them off. They walked briskly, their determination battling against the creeping doubt that lingered behind them. As they stepped into the dim light of the hallway, a familiar face appeared. It was Sarah, one of the court clerks, who had been sitting near them during the hearing. Her face was taut with concern, and her eyes darted around, clearly uneasy. Casey, Mike, she called, her voice barely above a whisper. Can we talk? She pulled them into a nearby alcove, where the shadows felt a little safer. What's going on? Casey could feel her heart pounding, sensing something important was coming. Sarah took a deep breath, the rush of emotions spilling through her expression. I heard some things before the hearing, she began, glancing over her shoulder. About the witness. They're in danger if they speak out. Someone's been watching them. Her voice cracked, fear leaking through the words. I didn't want to believe it, but who's watching them? Mike leaned in, his voice almost a whisper as they hung on her every word. I don't know the details, but I overheard a conversation. They mentioned an organization, something secretive. She hesitated. They called it Project Silent Shadows. It sounded dangerous. Project Silent Shadows? Casey echoed, her mind racing. The name itself sent shivers down her spine. What are they doing? They're involved in something big, Sarah whispered, eyes wide. I can't put it all together, but it's linked to what happened that night, the screams. They don't want anyone finding out. Casey glanced at Mike, fear kicking at her heart. If they're watching the witness, they might be watching us too. Mike nodded, his jaw tightening. We have to act fast. We need to secure the witness and protect them. If they know we're onto them, his voice trailed off, dread filling the unspoken words. Let us not waste any more time. Casey turned to Sarah, urgency bleeding into her every word. Is there any way we can contact the witness without drawing attention? I might have a contact, Sarah replied hesitantly. But it's risky. You have to promise me if you do this you'll be careful. The air around them felt electric, every second stretching as the reality of the danger sank in. Casey's heart raced, excitement mingling with fear. They were teetering on the edge of something momentous, a decision that could change everything. Tell us what to do, Mike urged, determination igniting his tone. But just as Sarah began to explain, the echo of footsteps interrupted. Casey turned sharply, realizing they weren't alone anymore. There, silhouetted in the dusky light, were figures they didn't recognize, closing in with purpose. What now? Casey whispered, panic rising. They had crossed a line, and it was clear the shadows were shifting. Would they fight or flee? And what truth lay hidden behind those advancing figures? The stakes were higher than ever, and Casey felt the weight of risk settle on her shoulders. They might have stumbled into a trap, but she wouldn't back down now. The answers, the buried secrets, were within reach. Would they be able to face whatever twisted truth lay ahead? Or was this just the beginning of a darker journey? The room shifted as the figures drew closer, their intentions cloaked in uncertainty. Casey's heart raced, sensing the gravity of the moment. Mike stood beside her, his expression steely, ready to face whatever darkness threatened to emerge. They were in deep now, but she could sense the tide turning. Stay close, Mike whispered, instinctively positioning himself between her and the approaching figures. Casey nodded, her pulse hammering in her chest as their silhouettes began to take form. The lead figure stepped forward, the light catching the edge of a familiar badge, a police officer. Casey Thompson? Mike Thompson? He called, a mix of authority and urgency filling the air. Yeah, that's us, Mike said, lifting his chin defiantly. What do you want? We need to talk, the officer nodded solemnly. It's about the witness and the protests outside. His words hung between them like a heavy weight. How do you know about the witness? Casey interjected, her tone sharp. What's happening? There are things you don't understand, the officer replied, his eyes narrowing as he motioned for them to follow him. Please just trust me. I know you've been digging into things, and it's dangerous. They willingly followed him into a private conference room, the tension crackling in the air like static before a storm. They were about to uncover the truth, but they were also stepping into the jaws of uncertainty. As the door shut behind them, Casey spoke first, unable to hold back. What do you know? What's going on with the witness? Who is this Project Silent Shadows? The officer rubbed his temples, as if recalling a weighty burden. Project Silent Shadows is a covert operation that's been going on for years. They manipulate witnesses, keeping critical information from coming to light. The person you listened to earlier, they're tied to all of this. They could be in serious danger. We can't let them go public or things might escalate. Then we have to protect them, Mike asserted, his voice rising with determination. They deserve to be heard. The officer looked thoughtful, nodding slowly. You understand. There's an operative working within the project that sympathizes with your cause. He needs to be contacted before they go dark. But it's risky. Risky? Everything has been risky. Casey felt the urgency swell within her. We'll take that risk. We're not turning back now. With a grim resignation, the officer relayed the operative's location. Each piece of information felt like a stepping stone through treacherous terrain, but they were no longer traversing this alone. Together they could forge their own way. Stay alert, the officer cautioned as they prepared to leave. If Silent Shadows catches wind, they won't hesitate. They want this to stay buried. As they stepped out into the hallway, Casey felt a shift in the air. It was charged with an energy that hinted at hazardous unknowns. The officer kept his eyes scanning the area, while Mike reached for her hand, squeezing it tight. Whatever happens next, he glanced at her, determination burning in his eyes. We face it together. Together, she echoed, heart swelling with hope amidst the chaos. They made their way through the buildings, merging into the fierce crowd gathering outside. The protests had only grown louder, the atmosphere thick with indignation and despair. Now, they needed to find the covert operative before the atmosphere turned hostile. In the midst of the crowd, Casey felt her footing become uncertain, the push and pull of voices around her wrapping tightly like a heavy cocoon. But Mike remained at her side, unwavering. Finally, they spotted the operative, a man with a worn expression, pacing just outside a small coffee shop, glancing over his shoulder. "Are you him?" Casey asked suddenly, adrenaline pounding in her ears. "Yeah, but we need to move." He grabbed their wrists, pulling them towards an alleyway. Heart pounding, they followed, urgency driving them forward, whispering, "You're in serious jeopardy." The moment they settled into the dimness of the alley, Casey launched into her questions. "We know about the witness. We need proof of their safety. We can't risk losing this." The operative shared deep concerns, his eyes darting around as if they were being watched. "I'm here to help, but this isn't just about the witness. This is a network powerful enough to erase lives. You don't know what they're capable of." "What must we do?" Mike asked firmly, grit resonating in his voice. As dread and hope intertwined, Casey knew they stood on a precipice. They were on the verge of unveiling the layers of darkness that hid critical truths, but at the same time, they had to brace for the battles it might unleash. "This is the moment where everything changes," the operative said. "And you two need to decide if you'll follow this through." With deep breaths, Casey and Mike faced one another, the bond of their shared journey threading them close as it ever had been. "We're all in," Casey declared, her voice steady, resolve lighting her features. "No backing down. No more fear." In that decisive moment, as they embraced the shadows ahead, it wasn't just about the witness or Project Silent Shadows anymore. They were fighting for their future, their reconnection, and the possibility of a whole new chapter together. The journey was only beginning, and they would rise together, no matter the odds. Any darkness that stood before them wouldn't match the light of their determination. What awaited them was uncertain, but now they walked hand in hand, ready to confront whatever twisted truths lay ahead. The sun would rise again, and together, they would face it, breaking new ground where once lies and shadows ruled. And as the curtain fell on the chaos surrounding them, it was a fresh dawn for Casey and Mike, armed with courage and truth, full hearts ignited to reclaim their lives and futures. Now, you've reached the end of this powerful journey. You need to subscribe now to follow their story through more twists and triumphs ahead. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, showing your support for these intense moments of transformation. Comment below, sharing your feelings about Casey and Mike's courageous choices. Your voice matters. And don't wait not even one more second to share this journey with at least 5 friends who need to see the power of unity and healing.